I can almost guarantee you already know about the platform I'll be talking about today, BetterHelp. You've seen the sponsorships and ad reads from multiple YouTubers, but do you know all the controversies surrounding it?
BetterHelp. 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 View BetterHelp.
BetterHelp.
BetterHelp. BetterHelp. BetterHelp. BetterHelp.
BetterHelp.
BetterHelp. BetterHelp.
BetterHelp.
BetterHelp. BetterHelp.
There is a list of over 100 YouTubers who have promoted this website.
Hi, I'm Danny, and today we'll be talking about the online mental health platform that prides itself on having affordable professional therapy with a licensed therapist via phone, video, or text. This service was founded in 2013. For years, I've been seeing ads throughout my social media, and I wondered how good of a platform it actually was. I mean, accessible therapy genuinely sounds like an amazing idea for people all around the world. Other benefits that were advertised were things like how easy it was to change therapists if you didn't feel like your current one is benefiting you, the ease to schedule appointments, the ability to do your therapy sessions anywhere, and so on. However, based on the magnitude of upsetting stories and information we'll be talking about today, BetterHelp is definitely not great. I do want to include a disclaimer and say that I will always be pro getting therapy and allowing yourself room to grow and learn with a professional there to assist you. I hate how inaccessible therapy is and how hard it can be to find a therapist that best suits you. I mean, I almost gave up on therapy after having 2 therapists I really didn't like. That being said, I don't want people to hurt more because they thought BetterHelp was the solution to their struggles with cost and finding a therapist, because it likely is not. In this video, we'll start by going through the various controversies and safety concerns revolving around the credibility of the platform. Then we will see and read about the negative experiences of customers who have used BetterHelp. And finally, we will discuss how therapists feel about the app. In October of 2018, PewDiePie made a video titled, "We Need to Talk About YouTubers Promoting This." In this video, he reads a very interesting statement within their terms of service.
However, in their own terms of service, they acknowledge that if you are using this site, it is not a complete substitute for face-to-face examination and for a session by a licensed qualified professional. So it's marketed as a cheaper substitute for therapy, when in reality, it's a luxury. It's an addition to therapy.
He also mentions that the YouTubers who are promoting this app are actually getting paid per person of who signs up using their link. I had no idea that was happening, but that makes me even more upset to see so many YouTubers we all know and love promoting such a sketchy company and financially gaining off of people who may have one of these extremely negative experiences. I've also seen many people point out that a lot of these influencers talk about how great therapy has been for them while they're promoting BetterHelp. However, the therapy they're talking about is likely the expensive and less accessible therapy that BetterHelp claims to be bridging the gap between. It's honestly just so confusing. That same year, 2018, BetterHelp suffered a data breach in which thousands of users' personal information was exposed. This included their names, email, and even messages with therapists. It's also important to acknowledge that BetterHelp operates a multitude of websites, which funnel back into its telemedicine service. These sites include Pride Counseling, Faithful Counseling, and Teen Counseling. All of these advertise as 100% private, but it also seems they may see and value people more as consumers rather than patients. I've also noticed how the website consistently advertises as the largest therapy platform. Now, who cares how big it is when I'm just looking for it to actually be helpful? If you are unaware, health data is some of the most valuable information to a technology company. According to Jezebel, Facebook is alerted every time you opened the BetterHelp app. Additionally, metadata from every message you send to a therapist, not its contents, just the metadata, which includes things like time of day, approximate location, and how long the chat occurred for, is all shared with Facebook. Facebook isn't the only site receiving this information, though. When signing up on BetterHelp, the member is assigned a random number as their identity, and all their answers are forwarded to Mixpanel. This questionnaire includes things like a person's location, what device they're using, approximate age, religious beliefs, financial status, and sexual orientation. Or even more intimate details like when was the last time you planned to end your life. Companies like Uber, Airbnb, and BMW use Mixpanel. So while none of this information should ever be tied back to you, it's unfortunate it's being used against you to advertise and promote other businesses and ideas. Also, just because this information may not specifically be tied to a specific individual, the computers themselves are now using the information to make inferences about an individual or a group of people. These inferences are then used to treat people differently on these sites depending on their current health or maybe how much money they have. BetterHelp's privacy policy says it will never sell or rent any information you shared on the platform, while also noting it might disclose minimum necessary information to third-party partners for customer service or targeted content. This disclosure technically covers the information it's sharing, but doesn't capture the broader implications. BetterHelp's co-founder and CEO at the time then issued a statement responding to the allegation. He begins talking about PewDiePie's video, although he doesn't mention him by name, and says the information shared about how they don't properly vet their counselors couldn't be further from the truth. He writes, "As we explain on our site, we have a whole team that makes sure every provider we bring to the platform is fully licensed and in good standing. Providers who apply are required to provide proper licensure documentation, proof of identity, and references from other licensed practitioners who have worked with them. We then cross-check their licensure information with their respective state licensing board. Additionally, our vetting process for each provider, which typically takes 4 to 5 weeks, goes well beyond checking credentials. Each potential provider needs to complete a case study exam by a licensed clinician and a video interview. The result of this rigorous process is that only about 15% of the therapists who apply to work through BetterHelp are accepted to the platform." While this sounds like a great claim, many people found themselves having counselors who were not properly licensed, so I'm not sure what the explanation is there. He also addresses the data sharing issue. One of the favorite conspiracy theories was that our business model is selling data to third parties. This is such a far-fetched conspiracy that I feel awkward addressing it. Our model is simple. Members pay a fee to get counseling. Counselors are paid to provide counseling. We are in the counseling business, not in the data business. There is nothing we take more seriously than the security and privacy of our members. It also goes without saying that counseling is a strictly regulated space, and selling such data would be a gross violation of federal laws, state laws, HIPAA regulations, and our own terms and privacy policy. This article is written in such a cocky, no one can touch me attitude, and it's very irritating to read. But again, this disclosure technically covers the information it's sharing, but it doesn't capture the full picture. The information is still being shared. It's just not technically tied to you or falls under the law or regulations such as HIPAA. The law does require them to hold on to specific health information though, but that didn't completely happen either. On March 2nd, 2023, the Federal Trade Commission, or FTC, issued a proposed order banning BetterHelp from sharing consumers' health data with third parties. The order also required BetterHelp to pay $7.8 million for deceiving customers after promising to keep sensitive personal data private. The $7.8 million that BetterHelp must pay under the proposed order will be used to provide partial refunds to customers who signed up for and paid for BetterHelp services between August 1st, 2017 and December 31st, 2020. In addition to banning BetterHelp from disclosing health information for advertising, the proposed order also prohibits the company from misrepresenting its sharing practices and requires it to obtain affirmative express consent before disclosing personal information to certain third parties for any purpose, put in place a comprehensive privacy program that includes strong safeguards to protect consumer data, direct third parties to delete the consumer health and other personal data that BetterHelp revealed to them, and limit how long it can retain personal and health information according to a data retention schedule. Also in this investigation proposal, the FTC writes, from 2013 to December 2020, however, respondent continually broke these privacy promises, monetizing consumers' health information to target them and others with advertisements for the service. For example, from 2018 to 2020, respondent used these consumers' email addresses and the fact that they had previously been in therapy to instruct Facebook to identify similar consumers and target them with advertisement for the service, bringing in tens of thousands of new paying users and millions of dollars in revenue as a result. And most recently, BetterHelp offered 6 months of therapy at no cost for those affected by the war in Israel during the breakout of the 2023 Israel-Hamas war. Although Israel's government is said to not be involved, the announcement was made on the Israeli government's official Twitter account. I want to preface that this section is a bit heavier as people share more intimate details of their mental health and their experience on BetterHelp. One Reddit user shares, "When I signed up for BetterHelp, I was matched with a therapist that wasn't really responsive. So I solicited a change of counselor. This time I could pick somebody. I went for one that looked right for me. He was very responsive, and on the very first day, we arranged our first video chat. He was a bit odd, but some of the things he said made sense, so I decided to book another video chat for the next day. Little did I know I was about to be humiliated and belittled by this man. The tone of the conversation was completely different. He implied that his life was almost perfect and that I should be like him. He also used his age to say I didn't know anything about life. I felt that everything I said was being used against me. At a certain moment, he wanted to imply I had signs of narcissism in me, and having suffered from narcissistic abuse pretty much my whole life, that was very hard to hear. I had never felt this unsafe with a therapist before. He admitted himself to being a narcissist. Close to the end of the session, while I couldn't stop crying and every time I tried to say something, I would cry even more, he said, 'Now you have 1 minute to share your final thoughts before our time is over.' He said it that way, cold, distant, not addressing any of my emotions. After the session, I almost killed myself. I couldn't understand how I could live without hurting everyone around me. I felt that I deserved to disappear completely without any evidence of my existence because I was the source of the worst evil and everything that would ever come out of me was poisonous." I don't even have words for that. I'm disgusted that a human would ever treat another human that way and call themselves a counselor. Another post shares that their therapist thought they were pretty and made the entire conversation about sex. They also believe he may have been touching himself throughout the session. So that's absolutely insane. Many people have also shared that their therapists are constantly canceling at the last minute, showing up several minutes late, or not showing up at all. One post says that they were randomly matched with a Christian counselor who then canceled once they found out the client is gay and was uninterested in conversion therapy. Another person was ghosted for weeks before being informed that their therapist had died. Moving to TikTok, one user shares this.
So I tried BetterHelp twice. I actually got a refund from them. So my first therapist was 10 minutes late to our 10-minute meeting, our first initial meeting. And then she was like, "Oh, wow, we don't have a lot of time." So I told her about something and it was like something traumatic for me. And she focused so much on the other people's pronouns and sexuality that like the story didn't even matter at this point. And then she kept trying to sell me her book. So I contacted them and I got a different therapist. He was also late and just completely missed our first meeting. We set a second one. He missed that one. And then he just texted like, "Oh man, I'm so sorry. I was at my other job." And I was just like, what?
And another where the therapist talked about themselves throughout the session.
Only way to contact them, the licensing, the state licensing board, is through Facebook.
Oh, wow.
I called the state office and they're like, yeah, you can only get a hold of them through Facebook. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, that's intense.
That actually reminds me of a therapist I had that spent over 20 minutes talking about how a homeless man scared her in the airport parking lot in the middle of the night. I had mentioned having some anxiety of going to the airport alone or something, and she just kept going on and on with her story. I left that session very confused. And finally,
and this is why I think the app BetterHelp is a complete scam. On June 4th, which was my 37th birthday, I decided as a birthday gift to put myself into therapy to work out some different things that have been bothering me, stuff like that, right? I had one session. It was great. Signed up for the next one with the same therapist. The following week, she's a no-show, no call, no text, nothing. Okay, no problem. I look for a new therapist. I find another one, right? We have a session within the next few days. Same thing happens. No call, no show, no text, no nothing. End up getting with another therapist. She and I are communicating through text through the BetterHelp app. Yet the day of the session, same thing. No call, no show, no nothing. Today, I kid you not, today at 10:30, I was supposed to have a session with another therapist. I was there at 10:30 and same thing. No show, no call, no text, no nothing. This app is a complete scam. A complete scam. Never again.
I am not kidding when I tell you that you can find hundreds of accounts of these insane stories. Now, obviously, we can't know if they're all true, or some may just be feeding into the virality of this crazy thing that happened to me on BetterHelp. But I want to give everyone the benefit of the doubt and take it as fact. So yeah, this app is not set up in a way that consistently supports people needing therapy. One thing that BetterHelp prides itself on is that all of its therapists are licensed. However, users have found that to be untrue. There have been reports of unlicensed therapists practicing on the platform. This is absolutely heartbreaking, as people are paying for this service and being promised licensed and certified therapists. It isn't uncommon for businesses to take advantage of their customers, but to take advantage of people that are already struggling and being brave enough to seek help is absolutely despicable. Unfortunately, BetterHelp also takes advantages of their therapists. While signing up to be a therapist, there is a pay scale that the site shows you to give an idea of what your income may be. Mickey Adkins points out in her video that this scale is based on a salary before taxes and the assumption that the therapist will work all 52 weeks a year. Now, that may be common in a multitude of jobs in America because most of us are overworked, but a therapist should never be working that much. They not only need but deserve time off from the insanity of their jobs. She also mentions the background for why therapy can be so expensive and how you're not just paying $100 to $200 for an hour-long session, but you're paying for their time in doing your paperwork, helping fund the costs of their office space, and many other factors that allow them to make a living wage for their skilled labor job. All of that being said, BetterHelp does not pay well. This is Mickey breaking down the pay for someone taking on 20 clients, which is generally considered full-time. However, BetterHelp considers it part-time. Please do not forget what it took for this person to become a licensed therapist. A master's degree that they likely now have loans for, hours and hours of clinical practice, testing, and all the things that depend on the state a person is licensed in, and the stress of the job on the individual on top of all of that. The pay is just not okay.
For the 20 hours per week, which again would be 20 clients per week, and so for most people that would actually equate to 40 hours worth of work, you would be making $39,000 annually before taxes. After taxes, that would equate to roughly $25,350. So even if we round that up to be $25,500, still you're making under $25 an hour.
Maybe this is why the therapists don't show up to sessions on this app. They don't get paid enough to even care. I'd hate for my therapist to be burnt out or struggling to pay their bills, because how can I expect them to take on my mental load when they're already overwhelmed? Mickey also points out that BetterHelp is constantly advertised as an any place, anytime therapy service.
The truth is that healthy, effective outpatient psychotherapy includes boundaries that mean that you can't contact your therapist anytime that you're having an emotional reaction to something. In some cases, this is actually a really important vehicle for clients to experience growth, because when we go through the process of self-soothing, of figuring out our own solution, and then unpack the emotional impact of that with our therapist later, there's a feeling of empowerment that happens, that like, wow, look at me, like I did that, you know?
Not only does this model not allow a client to learn how to self-soothe, as she mentioned, but the expectation of a therapist to be there for this person at a moment's notice is insane. I've seen that they get 24 hours, but even then, what actually is the time off for these therapists to go be themselves? This model also seems to be built in a way that a person becomes dependent on the therapist so that they remain subscribed to BetterHelp indefinitely. Another YouTube channel by the name Private Practice Skills did an Instagram questionnaire to ask her followers how well BetterHelp treats their clinicians.
Another person says, awful, zero boundaries, unhealthy cycle of therapy process. Ugh. Another one says, I'm having to schedule and fix a lot of mistakes that the staff is making at the company. And another person says, it was okay in the beginning, but in order to make a good amount of money, I had to see 40 plus clients per week. Oh, I mean, this just reminds me of what we were talking about earlier when we did all that math with the pay. And at least for this person, they felt like in order to make a decent amount of pay, they had to see a lot of clients per week.
Again, a therapist that is allowed a healthy work-life balance and is paid a living wage is going to be a better therapist. So it seems BetterHelp doesn't seem to care about that for their employees, which also affects patient care. The idea of BetterHelp is amazing, but unfortunately in practice, it has been far from perfect. Thankfully, some people have had pleasant experiences and found a therapist that fit their needs perfectly. Others felt used and abused in their most vulnerable state. I want to be clear that I am by no means saying no one should ever use BetterHelp and that it is 100% at all times a scam. I will always be pro-therapy and believe everyone deserves therapy. However, between the privacy concerns, awful treatment of clinicians, and lack of professionalism from therapists, I will never personally use BetterHelp. Additionally, I believe a multitude of therapists on BetterHelp mean well and are ethical and passionate about what they do. Again, the idea of BetterHelp sounds so good, but it's proven that this model of mental health care isn't fully understood or perfected yet. Overall, I believe consumers are entitled to being well informed about where their information is going, especially relating to their mental health. And BetterHelp has violated that. If you enjoyed this video, please take a moment to give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Do you have any experience with using BetterHelp? Leave a comment below because I would love to hear it. Until next time, bye.